Everybody, please welcome to the stage Jonathan, who's going to be showing us BACKER Award.
Hello. Hey guys. I'm John. Nice to meet you. Yeah. All right. Okay. Cool. So I like strange games, and so I want to talk about games as strange machines. Subtitled The Secret History of Video Games. I'm Jonathan Zungre. This is the team that made the game that I'm going to be showing you in a little bit called BACKER Award. In the bottom left, that's Sig. Above him is Shepard. Jeff is behind me. And then James is on the bottom right. Basically, who I am is I'm a game designer, and I also teach history of games classes at NYU, because that's a thing. That's actually a thing now. You can actually teach about the history of games and go to school and learn how to make games, learn the history of games. It's fantastic. I feel like it shouldn't even be allowed, right? It's amazing. What BACKER Award is something we made in 48 hours. It was at the Global Game Jam in Brooklyn, and it won Best Overall Game, which was kind of cool because there was about 100 people there making great games. The most interesting thing about it, though, is that we used this yes and philosophy. We were all former actors, like actors in a previous life. We weren't a team before. We just kind of got together on the fly, and but we all had acting experience. And has anyone ever done improv theater? Raise your hand if you've done improv theater. Okay, so it's horrifying, I think. Basically, you have to come up with a scene in front of everybody with no prior, experience, no script or anything like that. So for like a more traditional actor, for me, that's like horrifying. But one of the main concepts that make it work is the concept of yes and. So if your partner comes up and starts a scene and he's like, isn't it great to be in this spaceship with you flying to Venus? You have to say something like, yes, and it's strange that the controls are made out of peanut brittle. Or like, I don't know, I'm not good at it, I don't know. But what you can't say is, no, we're not in a spaceship. Because then you've like destroyed the reality of your scene. And then he'll be like, no, we are, and everything breaks down. So literally what we tried to do for 48 hours was just say yes to each other for everything. So what you're about to see is basically like the accumulation of that. No one was ever told no in making this game. So let's check it out. So all you can do right now is just walk around. Then answer it. Hey, hello backers. We are so happy to finally be launching our Kickstarter, and we're really devoted to making this a collaborative process with you guys. We care about you guys. We value your feedback, and we want you backers to be an integral part of this development process.
Yeah, so now I think the game should be more realistic.
But I think the game should have elves in it.
Maybe you can help us decide. What do we do now?
What do you want?
Fantasy.
Fantasy? Oh, sorry, I heard fantasy first. All these backgrounds are completely jacked from the internet. very epic. I feel very heroic playing this.
Hello, backers. One of our developers called in sick today, unfortunately.
James is gone.
But the rest of us are still here, hard at work, making your game.
I think it's pretty clear that this game should be action-oriented.
I tend to like more narratively focused games that tell a really epic story.
Yeah.
So let's ask our players. They'll make the right choice, won't they?
Okay, what do we do now?
Narrative? Alright. The goal for writing that narrative was the tropiest trope that ever troped. Just fantasy tropes, game tropes.
Hey there, backers. Thank you for your continued support. We're here to ask you about the types of NPCs you want in the game. Do you want NPCs to fight, or are you interested in... What? Sig, come on.
Strawberries!
We need the main character to have something to interact with, Sig.
I am the main character. The game is about me.
That was placeholder art. I can't believe that you're doing this again.
You'll choose strawberries if you know what's good for you.
I can't do this.
Whoa.
Okay, Jonathan, I'm done.
Whoa.
So, backers, what do we do now?
So this is a good example of yes and right here. So someone said we should have strawberries in the game, and someone else said yes, and they should have big beefy arms that punch. And because you didn't choose action early on, there's no way to defend yourself. You can't fight them in any way, or jump, or get away. And the narrative is still going, the epic narrative.
Hey, backers. I'm supposed to ask you, do you want more graphics or less graphics? I don't know what that means. So, I don't know. What do we do now? Please help me. I don't know if you can...
So less or more? Less? Oh, minimalist, all right. Choice? Oh, flashing light warning. Sorry. Close your eyes. That's like Sig's nose and face. I don't know if you can see the glasses, but... Yeah, and it just crashes. That's how the game ends. I'm a teacher at NYU, and I teach game history. And at NYU, we have this kind of large net approach where we talk about games in a lot of type of ways. We talk about ancient games, like this old school backgammon set. Backgammon's like 5,000 years old, if you didn't know. We talk about sports as games, and we also, of course, talk about video games. But I think what I've kind of realized when I come here to the festival is that games are good for a lot of different reasons. And I think one of those reasons are sometimes they just seem like really strange, bizarre, mysterious machines. I think that's kind of what we were going for with Backer Reward, and I see it in a lot of games out there. And I think they have a common history. And I think it starts with this. Has anyone heard of this? Who's heard of this? Raise your hand if you heard this. Okay, so like half-ish. So this is like my favorite thing in the world, and I think that every game designer should definitely hear about this. It's like this crazy thing that happened like 200 years ago. It was a chess-playing automaton built during the golden age of invention and technology. 1770 is when it was built, and it toured around for 70 years, and it had multiple owners, and tons of different people played it. So basically, it was like, do you guys know what an automaton is? It's like a clockwork machine. You wind it up, and during that time, when there was a bunch of them around, they could do different things. Like you would have one that could like walk around. They had one that had like a digestive system. This is like in the 1770s, and you could like put food into it, and it would like digest it, and then it would come out, and so all of these kind of crazy, bizarre, kind of like clockwork robots. People were making these things as attractions and selling tickets to them. And this one, oh, by the way, all this is based on this book by Tom Standage that you should read, and it's amazing, and my own research on the internet. So yeah, it's this guy on the right here, Wolfgang von Kempelen. He made the Mechanical Turk for this woman right here, Empress Maria Theresa of the Austrian Empire. And the way that the story goes is she loved entertainment. Like she just loved having all the different acts from all over the world come to her court. And if you were in the know, if you were like one of her main people, then you got to see these acts. And he was like an engineer, and he built bridges and water pumps and everything like that. And he built this thing in basically what was like a year-long game jam. The whole concept is there was this French magician that came to the court, and he did like a pretty good act, but he was really condescending to everybody who was there. And this made Kempelen super mad. And so famously he gets up and he's like, give me a year and I will build you a much more amazing wonder than you've ever seen before. And I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, so that's basically what he did. And he brought this thing back to the court, and it was this clockwork machine that could play a game of chess against you and that could win. And when he did that, there was kind of like a presentation to it where he would like open up all the drawers and he would show you all the all the gears and the mechanisms. And you could like look straight through the machine. You know, it wasn't like a trick. In later versions of it, as it toured around, it could actually like speak. It could say like, when it put you in check, it could say like check. And then you could like ask it questions in much later versions, like its marital status, which is like super bizarre because it kind of reminds me of Siri and like the weird questions people ask Siri. And it could correct, like, if you tried to cheat, it would, like, correct your moves. It would, like, take your piece and put it back. And, like, famous people played it. Like, everybody loved this thing so much. Benjamin Franklin came over and played it. Napoleon famously played it, and he tried to cheat, and it put the piece back. And when we tried to do the same thing again, it, like, took its arm and, like, knocked all the pieces off the board. Because that's kind of how it worked, is, like, it would, like, sit there, and it had this like kind of like mechanical arm that would pick up pieces and like put them other spots. So it was like a show, you know, to see this like clockwork machine to do this. And then like later on, after it exchanged owners a couple times, Edgar Allan Poe wrote about it in one of the Baltimore newspapers. But like the guy who made it, it kind of destroyed him. Like he hated talking about it after like a couple years, because he was an inventor, and he was during the age of when all these inventions were coming out, and he wanted to talk about his other inventions, like this thing, the speech machine, which is like this analog machine that you could adjust and toggle, and then to try to say a certain word, and then when you push air through it, it would actually like speak the word, kind of like not great, probably like Siri, like it sounds kind of weird, but like. Nobody wanted to hear about this. They all wanted to hear about the Mechanical Turk. And he hated talking about it. He never wanted to talk about it, probably because many of you know it was a massive hoax. like not real at all, like not AI at all, even close. And this is kind of how it worked. You can kind of see the picture. There was a person inside the machine. This is not exactly right, but it's kind of the way it went. Basically, what happened was there would be a person inside the machine hidden by a bunch of like kind of faux gears, clockwork stuff, and then they would slide back and forth on a metal seat, and whenever they slid, the gears would shift and kind of like hide them. So whatever part of the machine he would open up, they'd be hidden by the gears. So he could kind of convince everybody that it was completely legit. And then what happened was, like, after he closed it back up, they'd be able to see the chessboard on the top of like the ceiling, and the pieces had magnets in them, and little strings tied to other magnets. So when a piece was on the board, the magnet would kind of be like taut and up against. There was magnetism. It would like be on the top of the ceiling of the cabinet. And then when it moved, the magnet would kind of like fall down and be like hanging from the string. So and then when wherever the piece was moved, the magnet would get taut again. So he'd be able to see where it was. And the guy inside of it was a chess master. He was great, and so he could beat people that were, you know, average Joes at chess. What's really cool about this is that, like, even when people kind of started to figure out that this wasn't legit, it still inspired a bunch of other chess players. This one is called Ajib, played by Harry Houdini, Theodore Roosevelt, short story writer O. Henry. Mephisto was another one that was kind of like fashioned like a devil, and it would win chess tournaments, and it conceded when it played against women because it was supposed to be like the charming devil, and it was like get into a winning position and then be like, I concede. So like people were into this. Like it went for until the early 1920s. I think Ajib was playing at Coney Island in like the 1930s or something like that. So like a long time, 150 years, people were like super into this, the same act, the same game, seeing the same thing. That is until this thing, which is considered the first computer game, not first video game, as long as we're like defining video games with a screen, but like the first computer game. And this was called El Ajedrecista? Yeah. So anyway, it's Spanish for the chess player. And it was the first thing to have AI. Like you could actually play a game of chess against this thing, a really simple game of chess, but still a game of chess. And then this was the first video game, which was like tic-tac-toe, and you had to put in your inputs with a rotary phone. But this is like what I'm trying to say. This is what I'm trying to draw a line to, is that the first computer game had its roots in this other kind of like fake, strange machine called the Mechanical Turk. It was in the cultural consciousness like for 150 years, right? And then someone eventually was like, no, we have the technology now, let's make this thing. And so like, you know, you can kind of see like that line. And so I think this is like something that's kind of cool about games that not a lot of people talk about. People talk about mastery, like when you play a game and you want to beat it, or you want to get good at it and be the best at it, and you want to get through all the different levels. That's one thing that people like about playing video games. They also talk about immersion, like this idea that, you know, you go into the world and you're immersed in this great story, or like a game like Skyrim, where you kind of are just like in that world. But I think there's like another reason why games are great, and that is because like sometimes there are these games and you start playing them, or you walk up to them and you don't know what you're gonna get. Like you have no idea. It's like just like a box of surprises. And I see like a lot of them out there in the arcade that just are just like setting my mind on fire, just because like it's so cool to see what they're gonna do. Like what it reminds me of is Psycho Mantis. Who's played Metal Gear Solid? People know what this is? Okay, about half. All right, so like Psycho Mantis is an amazing piece of game history because he's supposed to be a character that could read your mind, and he would talk to you as the player, not Snake, not the character you were playing as, but he would actually like address you, and the game would read your memory card, and he would say things like, oh, like if he would see a Castlevania save, he would say, oh, you like Castlevania, right? And famously, like in order to defeat him, you had to unplug your controller from the first port and plug it into the second port. Does anybody remember this? Yeah. So, yeah, he would make it vibrate on the table. Like he would say something like "Feel my power," and then like the controller would vibrate on the. It sounds kind of cheesy now, but back then it felt like revelatory to me. It felt like a revelation, and I think it's because like this was like a game that wasn't playing by the rules. Like this is a game that like is invading your space, like your physical space. You actually have to do something in your physical space to defeat him. I think that's really magical. I think it reminds me of like how I would feel if you would go and you would like play the Mechanical Turk in the 1770s. You sit down in front of this thing and look into its like lifeless mechanical eyes, but somehow it can sometimes speak, and somehow it's like moving its kind of like mechanical arm to pick up pieces and things like that. So yeah, that's like my theory. Games as strange machines, or maybe fantastic machines. It's Fantastic Arcade, or like games as magic, mysterious machines. This is kind of like my thought on immersion. Games are less about us going into their worlds and more about them invading ours. Backer Reward, I think, is kind of like that in that you play and you don't. Yeah, well, this is like more graphics, by the way. You have like all this, and that's like NPCs. That's all the weird NPCs that you can get, which are all like photographs of us that we animated and of like our friends and stuff. But like it's a game that's constantly shifting what it is and what it's supposed to be, and so I can't claim that it's a game of like mastery or a game of immersion. Like you're not like immersed in it. But I feel like it's weird. It's like a strange machine that you can play. I made another game called Lie to the Devil. This is a game where this is like me trying to chase Psycho Manus, where like in this game you walk into this room and you sit at this table and you have a computer there, and also to your right there's like a safe and a gift wrap present, and you play the game and the game references those props, and eventually you interact with them. If you're good enough, you can unlock the safe, you can open the present, and one of the things that happens is like you eventually have to play a game of Russian roulette in order to like save something that you've created. But this is kind of like mixing that physical space and that digital space. It also has some amazing art by Winnie Song. Yeah, so this is like kind of that idea of a strange machine, like something that doesn't play by the rules. Here's another venue. People watch you while you play. You're inside this like enclosed room, and people will come up, at a gallery and look at you through the window and watch your kind of performance of the game. Watch you play Russian roulette. It's real weird. There's another game I made called Sushi Chess. It's a game where you play chess with sushi, and you have to eat what you capture. Also, like people, I included this because I wanted to show, like, I don't think that these strange machines have to be digital. I think that they can be like board games. I think you can do something weird to a game, and then people are attracted to it. Like this, like draws a crowd somehow. Like people think it's really weird and interesting. And like oh man, it's the greatest. Like going out into that arcade and seeing all these like strange games, these strange machines is so amazing. There's a game that has a moss controller. Did you guys see that? You control it with moss and wood. It's amazing. And this one over here, I love, especially on the right, Eye of the Pyramid, where I think this kind of like is exactly what I'm talking about. It's this strange thing. You walk up to it, and you press the button, and 1 out of 100 times you win, and it gives you all these lights, and then you don't. Is that like, are you immersed in that? Is that like, are you mastering it? I don't think so. Like, I think it's just this weird, strange machine that you get to like interact with and play with, and it surprises you, and it's like magical. So I guess I wanted to end with saying thanks, guys. Thank you for making your weird, strange machines. It's so beautiful to like play them and be surprised by them. I think I see that at this festival the most. So thank you.
You guys have any questions for Jonathan? Yeah, Adam's got one.
This isn't really a question, but I read another good Hideo Kojima quote just earlier today.
Yeah.
It's from Wikipedia about one of the Metal Gear games, and all it says is Hideo Kojima originally designed the boss fight to last 1 to 2 weeks, but was told that it was impossible and, quote, not recommended.
Is that the end? Is that the boss fight with the end?
I'm guessing.
Okay. Yeah, I love Hideo Kojima so much because he makes his games so strange and so weird. I think I think there is something where you can advance time on your PlayStation. The end is like a boss that's supposed to be like 120 years old, and if you advance the time, the clock.
You can just wait him out for
You can.
3 hours instead of 3 weeks.
Oh, is it 3 hours? Oh, okay. So you can wait him out and he'll die of old age. It's great. It's so great. Oh my god. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah. I think that you get into an endless loop. I think that you can't do that, but you're welcome to try. I've never tried it. Like, we made this in 48 hours, and we haven't touched it since. So give it a shot. I don't know what'll happen. That's the fun about it. It's a strange machine. Yeah.
Teaching this stuff, have you had debates on certain games saying this is or isn't a game?
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah. That's the actually, like, every summer when we come up with the curriculum, it's like a bar fight. It's like, no, this game, no, these weird European games. We've never heard of them. That kind of stuff. Anybody else? Whoa, movie time. Yeah.
I think Light of the Devil is a good example of games invading our space. What reactions have you had from people that are noteworthy or interesting to Light of the Devil?
It's really varied, really varied. A lot of people laugh, but then some people get really somber. And recently, at a showing at 256 in New York, there a couple people cried, people crying, and I don't know, I don't know, but it's interesting to get such a varied response. Yeah. Anybody else? Can't really see you. Yeah.
All right, guys. Definitely thank Jonathan for coming. And coming up next, we are about to start our tournament block. We need a lot more signatures up here. We're going to start out with Video Ball. Adam Saltzman and Jen Frank, a.k.a. the voice of Video Ball, will be up here emceeing in just about 15 minutes. And then after that, we will have our hokey tournament. If you haven't already been practicing hokey out in the arcade, shame on you, but that doesn't matter. It's easy to learn, hard to master. And we will be checking that out right after Video Ball. I'll take this opportunity to once again thank our sponsors, Dell Alienware, Sony PlayStation, Humble Bundle, and then also